Welcome tonight to Middle Earth, Rogues of the Northern Frontier. As we left the last time with this group, the adventures of the Strix and Sura and their guide Manos it was very, very dark. They had attempted to assail the Barrows at night and been blocked on their path by a group of undead, which dealt them grievous wounds. Sura found himself stricken with a broken arm at the elbow, and Manos received a grievous gash upon his leg and bled almost to death. Minardil was able to help his two friends back to their camp, where their fire had brought the attention of a Dunlending scouting party who had been sent out to look at the odd goings on at the Barrows. Once they saw that these outlanders, as they see them, were injured, their caring hearts of of this particular party rendered them aid. They were able to bind Manos's leg wounds so that his bleeding would stop, and Sura finds himself with a somewhat ungainly rig of sticks and bindings on his arm that keeps it stable at this point. And they were offered respite back at their village. So as we join our group again, the sun is just rising, blushing the east with pink. The few remaining clouds dancing across the skies under the cold wind of the north. We see this band of about a half dozen trudging across this snow-speckled light forest. The leaves have all fallen, so the trees are skeletal, and the wind rattles through them as if possibly laughing at them, or some distant hag cackling in her glory of their pain. Our vision falls downward towards Sura. And Sura, would you describe yourself and tell us what's in Sura's mind?
We see a young face underneath a hood of white furs, a wolf's pelt magnificent on his small frame, a young man growing into maturity and adulthood. He is, his eyes are looking outward across this fascinating, dense forest and this land, and listening intently to the wind as it whistles and cackles and wails through the trees of these old gnarled trees. He thinks to himself, I've never seen this many trees in such a small place as in lands such as this. Not from my home, so far away. As we see him trudging along, his arm hurts, aches, but he tries to pay it little mind, having broken his leg once when he was a youth. Those old familiar memories of that time being cared for, the embarrassment for being cared for by others, as he wants to care. He wants to be the one who cares, and some lingering feelings of shame wash over him. A one who trained in the Vislas arts of his people, of the tribe of Yavaki, far to the north in the frozen lands of the Forodweth. He thinks to himself, it is I who should be tending to others, that not the other way around. He rubs his eyes with his other good arm, and as he tries to put those faces, those things he encountered last night from his memory, those horrifying corpses that walked and strutted towards them, despite his javelin hitting, despite the blade of Menardil, the Strix, and the singing bow of Manus, none of these things fell. And he remembers that cold, cold voice in that crypt, in that place of death, in this strange land, this war-torn countryside, as he travels with this Dunlending band. As we see him, he's warmly dressed in the fashion of the Lossoth people, a great coat of furs and big heavy boots of fur, elk-lined fur boots, and a large belt, almost comically too large for his size and stature. Ties his garb together not tightly, as well as his pack. He carries bags and sacks and rolled up bedroll in a tent. But he no longer has his trusty walking staff, his javelins, for those were thrown in the defense of him and his companions. Now he only has his axe that his father gave him, a carpenter's axe that he cherishes, among many other things, as his mind wanders about his family, his tribe so far away, and yet he must press on, for his quest lies before him.
All right. As we see Sura there marching along next to these Dunlending rescuers, our focus turns to the tall figure of Minardil the Strix. Could you give us a description and what's in your mind as matter?
Minardil of the House of Telpinar is a Dunedain. Some moderate renown as a bard who's quite far traveled, especially for a Dunedain associated with being Rangers of the North. He walks near to his companions, but under his breath, he's kind of like in a tune, muttering actually a sea shanty. He taking in the horror of his now second encounter with the Walking Dead. He is finding that he's more religious than he thought, and invoking the name of the sea god in battle. It doesn't sit wrongly with him, but he's taking more solace in that fact. He has offered. Actually, I'll pause here. Is Manos on a stretcher?
Yes, he's being pulled in a litter. One of the men fashioned the night before.
Okay.
It's probably not the smoothest of rides, but it's better than in his weakened state to walk.
Okay. In the hours that have passed, I have offered my shillelagh actually to Manos as a walking stick to help him ease off that leg. The Strix has taken a liking to his elf companion, and I was shamelessly poking fun at him from time to time, as he is a ranger and not spending much time amongst other people, especially of being an elf and so personable. But if I'm to catch his eye at this time, I'll throw him a knowing smirk and kind of give him the reassurance of, yeah, I'll be here. If you need something, holler. Now, in regards to Minardil's appearance, he has a sailor's gait to him. He has a walk that finds him almost naturally perfect, being in the woodland and on the road, as well as the as a deck of a ship. Um, Customarily, his left thumb is hooked under his belt, while his forefingers are draped across his mithril war sword, Clayon, who may or may not be humming in unison with Meinardale's kind of jaunty tune on his lips. Meinardale has a scar that almost makes him naturally purse his lips, almost in a like an intimidating and almost spooky fashion. Meinardale is not unhandsome, but there's no small amount of back alley in his steps. He both sailor, and he's got the grace of a jungle cat about him. He does not have his instruments on him, nor does he have many of his traveling gear, just his everyday carry. I'll actually end his soliloquy by him muttering, "Damn, I should have brought some coffee with." "Sir, you're going to be all right." He'll actually turn around as I'm probably walking ahead of him.
I look up, just distracted by by this gnarled and twisted tree. Oh, yes, I'll be all right. Don't worry about me. I've
Tell
had
me how
worse.
you fashion ink from the caribou. As
Oh.
he attempts to change the subject and keep the lad's mind on positive things.
Yeah, that's well, of course it's in the atlas. You have to harvest it very carefully, grind it down. Um, it's actually not a very difficult process. My grandmother taught me, Piora, she taught me how to do that. Well, first of all, and I go on, so this long sort of explanation, describing how to sort of how to purify it, using terms that may not be too familiar.
You'll just get knowing nods and continue. As if there's a lapse, and what about this? And probably the scene will lapse.
In what language are you conversing at this moment?
I believe. Well,
I'm Western.
Probably Western as the default, but I will default to Sindarin with Manos. At least that will, between us, will be encrypted, I suppose.
Okay.
But in mixed company.
So in the beginning of this journey, Manos was being the stubborn self. He did accept your offer of, as he referred to it, your walking stick. And he was able to travel a bit with that, but eventually he did. His pride was overcome by the weakness that the blood loss had caused, and he accepted the litter that one of the Dunlending had fashioned there. Specifically, the Dunlending's name is Madras. And Baraphael is, of course, the leader of this group. And as the light comes up and your eyes adjust to the morning, you see that these Dunlending, for the most part, are fair-haired. They stand possibly a head shorter than Meinardale, and maybe an inch or so taller than Sura. These are stocky fellows. They're not men of great height, but they are definitely men of great trews. Their dress is mostly in wools, although they do have some furs aligning those wools. But the pattern of the weaving is probably draws the eye, especially as the light lands upon them, and you see that there are threads of different colors running through these garments. They're not just a basic dark green or gray. The light actually picks out greens and yellows and reds and blues sort of interwoven in this cloth that just almost draws the eye and in some ways almost confuses the eye at times. As you were speaking about these things, one of them, the fellow that actually had treated Manos the night before and also bound your arms, sir, is a blonde-haired fellow by the name of, he introduced himself as Lorgan or Lorgain. He hears you talking about making ink from antlers, and he turns and says, "We make many of our inks here from berries and and from barks and such. I've never thought about making them from antlers. We mainly make our bows from the deer antlers around here." And he holds up a bow that has antlers reinforcing it, making it basically a bone composite bow.
That's a fine weapon. It's very fine.
Hmm.
You take care of it very well. I see you oiled it.
Of course. A bow and a bow not kept in hand might as well be a stick, for if it fails when you try to fire the arrow, you die.
It's even far worse than a stick. At least you can burn it for fire.
Oh, you get a shudder from several people at the idea of burning a bow. As they sort of they make some kind of sign with their hand as you say that, and they're like, "Oh no, Orme would not allow us to burn our bows." So
Maynard will actually take out his amulet, the amulet of Orome's gift. He'll actually take it out from under his coat, and he'll actually kiss it and then let it drop it. He's like, no, don't burn a bow.
Yeah, they see this amulet and this obviously sacred object to Orome, and several of them mutter in their own language, which I'm not sure if any of you guys speak Dunlending or not. It's somewhat of you're muted there, Maynard. I didn't hear what you said there.
Yep, no, I speak it. I just got one grade in it though.
Okay, you catch enough of it to that it's muttered prayers basically. The language itself is very musical. Listening to them it's almost like listening to a person speaking poetry in the way the cadence of the language flows. But as the sun finally tops the horizon and blazes across the sky, the air starts to warm a bit, and eventually you start hearing the drips of ice melting off of tree branches and the far distant slide of slushy snow falling off of either trees or rocks somewhere far in the distance. And you would think you'd be able to see quite a distance in this forest, because the trees have shed their leaves, but it can be deceiving because each way you look, especially to Sura, this may actually be a bit disconcerting. Your eyes just seem to meet a gray barrier. You can only see so far, and it's just the eyes get obscured by trees. They're following a track, not much wider than the width of two men walking side by side through this this forest.
As I sort of get a better light and get a better view of this strange land and this sort of this gray mass, this gray wall approaching, or it seems like that. I immediately feel a great sense of relief, and I exhale deeply, inhale, and I almost pause when the sun rises and some of that light filters in through the trees. Immediately feel so much better, so much better. The tense walk has been difficult this night, far more than others. But that the light of the sun just it calms. It brings so much calm. And now that I can see a little bit better, at least far better now, it's taking the smell. I linger back a few paces, and I walk alongside Manos, and I look to this kindly elf, this wonderful this warrior. I linger back and I say, Lord Manos, are you fine? How are you feeling this morning now? Do you feel still dizzy?
He takes a deep breath and he says, I will live. Manos does not fall this day, though. He looks down and says, my body does betray me, and I can't walk as far as I should, but I will owe this.
If I may,
yes.
I may fashion a sling with one of my scarves that may aid you in with your crutch there.
Hmm.
And without him even saying yes or no, I will not let him. I will not let him stop me. As I will tend to him, and sort of like create a bit of a sling to help support him and support his arm. And I will tie that around. And I'll do it as to best of my ability, being one-armed myself. And I will one stage also ask Lorgan, Lorgan, could you please help me with this knot here? As I kind of realize tying a scarf one-armed is actually really difficult.
Yeah, he comes back and looks at Manos. Manos just sort of gives him a nod, and he reaches up and he takes the cloth and he ties it in a knot. It's almost intricate the way he does it. But you can see that it's going to be a good firm knot, and he pulls it around a bit so it sort of sits there on his shoulder, almost like a display. And he says, "That good?" And Manos nods. "That's fine." And he looks back. He says something in the Dunlending language, and Lorgain sort of nods and sort of laughs a little bit, looks over at Sura and pats you on the shoulder and says, "You're doing a great job, lad." For Minardale, what he hears them talking about is Lorgain said to Manos, "Why is he making a sling for your arm? Your injury's on the leg." He goes back. He tells him back, just let him. He needs to feel useful. That's when he nod
with a kind of a not unintimidating chuckle. Like, no, just let him.
Okay, so they nod. So as your group travels, you all notice that the land is rising. You seem to be walking more uphill than down. And you come to an area where you top a bit of a ridge, and you see before you coming, these sort of valley cuts that are coming down from the Blue Mountains to your west, all wooded, as you see below you, and you turn and sort of start following this track as it zigzags down, one of them down the lowlands there. Beyond that, though, you can see maybe the next ridge over, the rising of cook fires for a breakfast. Quite a number of them, actually. You would actually, in most places in the world, Minardale, you'd probably think of this as being a somewhat robust town, although they keep referring to it as a village. So,
have we come in sight at any of the masonry that I can comment on?
Actually, you do come in sight as you're going down this track. You come to an area that's somewhat steep, and you notice that this track has been cut into the side of this hill. And on the downward slope side, as if almost like to protect someone walking, you see a low stone wall. This wall. Yeah. Okay.
Continue. I'm getting out my dice here.
This low stone wall, to your eye, it's covered in a lot of places vegetation where you can actually see it. You see it. The stones themselves are fitted in such a way that there's been no grout or anything placed in there between the stones. They've just been dry fitted, but these stones are sitting firmly atop each other and still in very good condition from what you can tell.
With a 76 on my intelligence, am I familiar with what style of masonry that I'm looking upon?
This is dwarven work. You've seen it before.
Something recognition of an old dwarf friend that I have not seen in some time. My face lights up, and I've actually walked by as I'm walking down this slope. I'm actually going to reach out with my fingers, and I'm actually going to like drag my four fingers around like the seamless stone there, and I'll be like, ah, yes, I remember your people fondly, and I love your music. Are there any dwarves that live here? I actually say in Dunlending. Excuse me,
Barafale,
Nail, I should say.
yeah, Denial, yeah, is the actual proper language. Barafale looks back and says, there are a few scattered here and there, long beards for the most part. Not of Jaren's folk.
I'd love to speak to a few of them.
I'm sure you'll see a few once we get into the village. But for the most part, it's us Dunlending here.
This village,
most of the
village. I default to what they're calling it a village, but I know damn well it's a town. I see the masonry, and I'm like, and I kind of comment like nonchalantly. I'm like, well, your buildings are not going to be falling down. What,
no
strong foundations, dwarven foundations. Oh, high winds, high ocean winds, possibly, or mountain storm. No, you don't fear these things. And actually start kind of like muttering the couplets of a sea storm poem that I found, I was listening to as I sailed some of the southern coast.
You see one of the other one that he hasn't spoken much to you, but you know his name is Oyster. As you begin singing this song of the sea and such, you see him. Actually, both of you will notice this. He seems almost fearful of the way you're speaking, and he mutters something under his breath. It's you just can't make out what he says.
I kind of see an accusatorial look. I'm like, what is that there?
Madras, he sees that, looks over at him, and actually smacks him on his shoulder, and he says, "Stop it with your foolish superstitions." And he sort of looks at it and sort of he mutters an apology as he sort of moves further away from you.
Am I older than him? Do I understand?
Probably.
I just look at
him.
Yeah,
you're probably older than everybody here but the elf.
Yeah, right. Now, of course, I'm 76 years old, actually.
Yeah.
How much time you spent on the water, boy? Or lad?
Barafel looks at you and says, none of our people have spent much time on the water. We're people of the hills and forests, not of the water.
Why does he fear the sea?
He sort of sighs.
Olmo
he says,
adores both men and elves. You're not men.
I will say this, good friend. You may not, while Orome is one of the great Valar, there are those among our people who do not see him the way you do. So I would keep that word, that name off of your lips as much as possible while in the village. There are those who curse the name.
You would curse the father of the waves?
Yes, because they brought the doom. There are those among my people who look at your people, and we name you Kumara, the sea wolves, the tall men who came from the ocean.
He rolls his eyes at that, and he knows exactly. All right, then. He actually puts his hood back up and goes back to like being the spooky wayward traveler who answers to Ranger yet again, like he does in almost foreign lands. And he just says to Lindley, just forget that I'm here then.
I'm just in the back watching this exchange, trying to piece together these words as much as possible. It's in other languages, but I'm still trying to just get a sense of what's going on.
Something's clearly wrong that Smur will understand. Strix is now being his surly self again.
Yeah,
I think maybe that you were rebuked for singing that song, and that song had somehow offended our hosts. So I make a note to myself, perhaps I should not be singing tonight. I need to make sure my songs are not going to insult.
So as this goes along, I said Oyster, he sort of takes point almost to get as far away as possible from you, and specifically from Minardil, it seems. He had been, until that point, he had been very quiet. He hadn't been openly, he has not been openly hostile, but that song seems to have struck a chord, if you will. Um, but and so you wander forward, sort of in a, I guess you could say a silence, not a companionable silence, more of a guarded silence in a way. But as you pass along this path, you begin to see more and more of these dwarven works until eventually you come to a bridge at the very bottom of this narrow valley, crossing a rill there in the middle. This bridge has the carvings of a pair of dwarven warriors, one to each side, as if they're guarding it as it arches
Can
over
I
this water.
quick make an
Yes.
intelligence test and see, do I recognize these faces? With an 82.
You don't recognize the faces per se,
Do I
but the
recognize
style,
patterns on the armor?
the style actually you see. Oh yeah, yes.
Oh,
The style that you see of it is it's in a distinct different style from what you've seen from the dwarves of Durin's line, which is sort of the more common dwarves there. These dwarves seem to be just a bit slimmer than you're used to seeing, and their beards, where the Durin's folks' beards are quite prominent, these actually come down and split and are woven into elaborate braids and actually thrown over the shoulders, to blend with their hair in the back. This is a clan known as the Longbeards. They're one of the truly ancient clans, and looking at this stonework, this might actually be a remnant of the First Age.
I will go to where there would probably be an inscription. And with some charcoal and some extra paper, I'm going to make a rubbing. Just anything. If I can get all of it on the piece of paper, I will.
Yeah, there is an area that looks like at one point it may have had a legible script chiseled into it, but this is a very, very old stone bridge. You can rub it and you can get the impression of runes, but they're not the runes that you're used to. These potentially are an ancient rune, maybe of the father tongue of the dwarven people long ago, before the breaking of the world and before before Morgoth was cast out. So back when these lands were mostly dwarven lands. So
I now know why you ask me for inks. You are an artist, it seems, or some sort of sculptor.
I am an acquirer of lore knowledge and a collector of artifacts. I try and recover things and bring them back to their people.
Artifacts. So you are a well-traveled man, explorer. Have you seen all of the... What lands have you traveled to? I have so many questions.
I have been so far north as to the ice. I have not met your people, but a neighboring tribe only once.
Yes. You most likely speak of the Lumivaki. Yes. They are of our people, the ones who are the most southern of our tribes.
I attended a walrus hunt. I had once a tobacco pipe made of said walrus tusk, but I lost it. Damn thing broke. Last time I was in as far south as Herod, where there is no snow. You could not wish for snow. Do not think of the word snow because you will disappoint yourself. The sea of the sea of glass and fire. I have been so far east.
A sea of fire.
I've been to Lorien. I have had some wine with the elves, and I have come back up west. I've made an entire loop. I've been gone for some time.
That's amazing. That's truly amazing. What if your tribe?
My
Do you have?
people, I
Yes.
of I lower my voice. The Dunedain, the Rangers of the North. We
Mm,
are few, but and quiet. We keep to ourselves, but wherever we lay our head is home.
you keep to yourselves, so you do not have a family.
Uh, my family is those of Telpinar, the Silverfire. I have not seen my sister, or he actually just stops and
I'm sorry.
you for a moment he gets maybe a little misty-eyed. You don't quite know
Mm.
if you saw what you just saw, but his voice trails off. So I have not been home in some time. He just, oh, we'll talk again soon.
Of
I have to
course.
finish this etching before our hosts get suspicious.
Uh, yes. Is everything okay back there? I noticed there was something happened when you had sung your song. I think I heard you sing it before, but it's. Do they not like songs? I whisper.
They don't like the ocean. Uh,
The ocean.
they
Why don't they like the ocean?
My Nardo rolls his eyes and says, I am of a people descended from another people who come from across the sea. You may say that I'm descended from a seafaring culture. And they
See?
are quite fearful of the sea peoples. And
Have you been upon a man ship before?
of course, I've
Wow.
I've spent plenty of time on the water.
Really?
I've
Oh,
spent plenty of time on your war canoes in the south of your icy lands.
oh, yes, yes. You speak of the Lumi tribe, of the Lumivaki. Yes, they are. Or perhaps even of the Yavaki, of the Merivaki, who are even further north to along the Bay of Ice, as you call it.
The only
Yes, they are. They
people
are
that
both
I
skilled
know
in
of
such canoes,
your
but
kind are the dark-haired ones, never so fair as you.
yes, the Lumivaki we spoke of. I'm you you were treated well by them. They are known by our the other tribes to be quite. I kind of look around, kind of a bit embarrassed.
You're
Quite
safe
greedy.
here. You're the only one of your people for thousands of miles.
uh, I kind of look around, and then I kind of look a bit misty eyed and a bit sad for a moment, and I say that's true. Um, yes, they are known quite. The Lumivaki are quite known. Uh, they call themselves the Proper, and they camp on the
Proper
southern shores.
indeed, I scoff.
They are prideful and arrogant. They are traders with the Southerners, and that is why I have managed to acquire this tongue a little bit. My father built sleds and sleighs and sold it to the Lumivaki, but they are very greedy and they give us very poor prices. Um,
They treated me well. They were quite
that
fearful
is
of me when I first met them, but I think that's due to superstition.
yes. Is
As you two are speaking, and the others are sort of taking a rest as they allow you to do this rubbing. Apparently, while you guys were speaking, someone asked Manos what you were doing, and you sort of heard in the background him explaining that yes, he collects the knowledges of old things, um, and then Barafael just said, "Well, take a break, then get some take a breath." You actually hear from across this stream and up the next hill, you hear what sounds like maybe a hunting horn being blown. The men look up, and they're it's not fearful. The look that they have on their faces is actually one of, I guess you could say, relief. at hearing it. And then a few, maybe 4 or 5 minutes later, you hear it again. And this time, Barafel actually pulls a horn out of his own from his hip and blows a return note on it. This horn is made of bone, so it has that sort of almost a deep, almost mournful sound to it. Just a few moments later, you see a band of Dunlending coming down from above, almost bounding. It's the way they move down this hill is the best way to explain it is controlled fall. They launch themselves from what is obviously the level of the road going up down this slope, and their feet sort of graze the ground, steadying them as they go, and then with one hand behind them. It's almost as if they're doing this to show off. Then as they get closer, you see they're all probably they're all younger than Sura. Probably their late teens, maybe early 20s, except for one. One is a bit older. He's maybe in his late 20s, possibly as old as 30, but he seems to be the most spry of the bunch. As he comes within speaking distance of the group, he speaks the Dinadale and hails Barafale and asks him what he's found, and he calls up and he says that he's found Manos previously wounded, and two others who were with him that he calls friend.
I will be translating what I do understand to
okay.
Sura.
That's sort of the gist of it. At one point, you see this one fellow look, and he looks at the two of you, and his eyes, when they light upon Minardil, go dark. And he says to something to the effect of, "You bring this Kumara among us, knowing my brother's fate." And he Barafel looks up, and
that do I get?
Enough to know that the Kumara you've already heard once,
right?
The sea wolf. You sort of get the gist that he is disapproving of you being there, and he seems to have some grief with your people, possibly. And you do get the part of knowing of him knowing what has befallen me or my family, one of the two.
I assume you don't, Rafe, you don't translate that, but you just kind of, Minardil was probably staring daggers at this guy or something. So as you're translating and then you drift off.
Yeah, no, so I'm translating and I'm being actually very pleasant. But as soon as the shit talk starts, I just stop and
I'm like listening intently, trying to hear what's next. And I'm like,
I turn to him and I do square off with this guy, like, you really. And again, my thumb is still under my belt, and I still have my hand on my sword.
Yeah. Well, just so you know, these guys are armed with shields and short spears. You do see long knives at their belts. And this guy looks at you, and the way he's handling this, he looks like he knows what he's doing with his spear, at least. He looks at you and he actually points at you with the tip of the spear. This is from 30 yards away, and maybe 20 feet above you.
Okay.
And he looks at you and he says, "Dunedane," in the Western tongue. He says, "To which house do you owe your allegiance?"
Mind your tone with me, young man.
Mind your tone here in my lands, outlander.
Please.
To which house do you owe allegiance?
Minardil, please. I whisper in your ear.
One that doesn't have an issue with yours.
That does not answer my question.
Yeah, right.
That does not answer my question. For one house owes me a blood price.
Which house is that?
House Palantir.
Oh, no. Now that'll actually again get that rugged back alley smirk off of the Strix.
Hmm.
What did they do this time? Not caring about the edginess.
He's sort of, yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
like, now I'm interested.
He
Or should we speak
basically
about this behind closed doors?
well. Actually, I'll tell you what. Do me a let's see.
A present?
Trying to make a knowledge roll. A knowledge roll is what you know about House Callantier.
I know enough
So.
to know that it's they're probably the ones in the wrong.
It's one of the great. Well, it's one of the great houses of Arthedain. So the question is, how much do you actually know about them?
An intelligence of 109.
All right. So you know that the house is led currently by a man by the name of Findulus III. He is a mage. And is considered one of the princes of Cardolan, or was one of the princes of Cardolan. They are very closely associated with elves. And they are probably the closest ones associated with the Rangers in general. So your house may not necessarily be directly associated with them, but it would be sort of odd for a Dunlending who deals with Rangers and elves quite often to have a problem with House Callantier.
That's really interesting because House Telpinar is a house that is mostly Rangers. That is more actually works closely with the people of Rivendell. But I'll just smile and say, well, your situation is an interesting one. But I am of a Ranger house, but I am not associated with Callantier. I know of them, but
he puts his speared butt down. He still has this look of distrust on his face. And then you hear sort of a weak call from Manos. And he calls out and he says, is that Grandin I hear? And the fellow says, I, Manos? He says, yes, these men are my companions. You need not fear mine Ardil. He is of goodly stock. He is not one that will be betraying you or leading any of your young men off to war. And he says, very well, if you vouch for them, they may pass. He says, I vouch for them.
I actually say under my breath, mostly to Sura, you do not have the knowledge to make a judgment call, but I appreciate that anyway.
So thank you so much for your hospitality. Really, truly, you honor us, kind warriors, strong warriors.
Kiss ass.
Okay.
And I kind of just nudged Sora with my elbow.
He looks over at you.
Kind
at
of
this
scowl
point,
at you a little bit, but then I'm just like kind of step forward and play the babyface role.
Oh.
Yeah. So his eyes moved to you almost as if it's the first time he's actually noticed you. Maybe. Then his eyes sort of go wide, and he's like, "That's you. You are very much outside of your home, are you not? I've heard tales of people dressed the way you are from the far north, where the snow does not melt."
Unfortunately, chieftain, my people and I have been driven south by the black winds and orc hordes of Angmar. I am far from the north. Our people's lands have been overrun.
At the mention of Angmar, you see a few of the men who are with them sort of look at each other. Although the look that they give each other, it's hard to read. Either looking at each other in recognition of saying, Angmar is, they're having troubles there too, or they know Angmar there. It's hard to see exactly, but Philip sort of nods. He says, I'm not the yard here, but I can take you to him. I'm just the head warden of this village. But come. We'll take you and get you treated. You seem to have an injury to your arm, and And Mono says, and I also have an injury.
Yes,
And,
my injury is nothing. It's just a graze. Manos
Manos
needs some
can
help.
walk it off. He's tough.
Minadril, stop.
Manos, you're a tough man, aren't you?
Monos sort of stands up at this point, sort of, a bit wobbly and still looking a bit worse the wear and very pale. And he steps around with this, his arm in the sling, but the bandage on his leg. And he says, last night we crossed swords with the dead. And at that gets everybody just sort of shuts up and looks. What?
And the Strix just says dun 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 dun.
And Brendan says that you cross swords with the dead. This is definitely something that Brahm needs to be informed of. I'll contact Matherakinan too, and see if she'll come and tend to your wounds. Come, we'll help you up. And a couple of the young lads come over and actually offer a shoulder to Manos. One comes over and checks your splint there, sir, and sort of nods at it and looks at you and says in sort of thickly accented Western, "Do you need aid walking?"
I'm just kind of looking over my shoulder at Manos, trying to see if I can do something to help him. And then I turn back to this younger boy.
Yes, I answer for him.
Okay.
And I
And
no, I'm fine.
As you said, this fellow sort of grabs your good arm and throws it over his shoulder and gives you some support as you guys begin heading up the zigzagged path to the top of this hill.
Thank you. But
you're
I
probably
walk, truly. Do you have something I can carry?
You could, and he says something in this language. And Minardo can catch something about youth, and they seem to think of you as looking much younger than you actually are, probably. Mm-hmm. And one of them actually looks over and says, "Maybe you should carry him like a babe." And several of them sort of laugh at that.
To laugh. He said, "Yes, pick him up."
No, please don't.
The fellow looks over his shoulder at you and
flustered. Thinking from last night.
It becomes somewhat of a tense moment, though, because they like, haha, look over, and as soon as the person who's helping you notices it was Minardo who said that, the laughter sort of falls away.
Ow!
And suddenly, like the fun just sort of is sucked out of the whole thing, and everything goes sort of becomes very businesslike. As you top the rise here, you see atop this hill is a great rise of stone, creating a dwarven-made hill, with a pathway leading halfway up it, which then pierces the wall of this hill into a tunnel leading upward. When you exit that darkness lit by torches as you're going in, you do notice that sort of above you in the darkness are ancient portcullises and ancient doors that are open that may not have been closed in 1,000 generations. Maybe it's hard to tell exactly, though they do seem to be in very good shape for being as old as they are. You come to the top, and atop this platform, you see this village. The image here behind my image is sort of the general idea of what you see. On the first stories of many of these buildings are made of stone, the same kind of stone you've been seeing in the walls and the bridge, fitted together with no mortar. But atop them, you see wooden structures, and in some cases whitewashed in the front and built outward, making almost a facade. But it seems as if maybe obviously the history of this town, the dwarven history, is still there, but it has grown beyond that as the humans have built atop of it. You're taken to a fairly large building has a um, it's 2 stories, but the center part of this building is open to the roof, and you have a promenade above to each side, with the railing looking down, and there's a trough running down the middle of this room that's a fire pit. At the far end of this room, you see a raised area with a possibly a throne or a seat. It's hard to say exactly. And there are tables sort of pushed toward the walls to each side to open the area up. And there's rushes and such thrown on the floor. And you're all led over to sort of a corner of this place where there are benches that have furs and padding and such there, and you're set down there, and given drink, and bread and cheese is brought to you. It's actually very good cheese, by the way. It's surprisingly good cheese. It's a very sharp flavor to it, and it makes you want the mead that they give you, almost as if it's designed to be. Yeah. You're definitely starving at this point because you guys have been going through the night. You haven't really had much rest.
We actually interrupted for our meal, so like we haven't eaten for almost 12 hours. Yeah.
Oh yeah. So I'm sure this definitely slakes your thirst and your hunger. And as you're eating there, the Dunlendings aren't really talking to you at the moment. There are a couple of them that sort of stay around, but your escorts have moved off to go, as Barafel said, they had to go to report. But there's about 3 that are there. One's a younger lad, possibly in his early teens, that's bringing you the food and the drink and such. The other 2 are obviously warriors, possibly put there to guard you, or at least to keep an eye on you. And as you're gobbling this food down, you see another fellow come in, escorting a kindly young or old woman that looks to be the most wholesome thing you've ever seen in your life. Her hair is iron gray and pulled back into a very intricate braid down her back. Her eyes have a bit of a green color to them, almost a mossy green, and the valleys and such outside that have been cut into this landscape have nothing on the wrinkles and creases in her face. And she's carrying a bag of looks like sweet deer hide that seems to be overstuffed with something. And she comes walking over to you. She looks Menardial up and down, and she says, "You're fine." Then looks at Sura.
Wait, hang on. Does this babushka see me under my hood?
Oh yeah, she looks you right in the eye. She sort of leans down, looks you in the eye, and says,
she leaned over.
"You're
to
good."
Look up.
Yeah,
and I actually,
you're good.
I'll actually make like a fucking 70-degree bow. I mean, just like slightly forward with my right hand on my chest. I say, "Lady, you do me honor. I thank you. If there's any service that you would have of me, I would be honored to do you service. May I have your name?"
She sort of looks at you for a moment, looks over at the fire pit, and says, put some more wood on the fire. We'll talk about that later when the business is done."
Excellent.
And she turns to Sura, and she says, "Young man."
I'm hiding my elbow, my broken elbow. I'm turning my body away from her so she doesn't see it. As I look at her respectfully, I bow my head. "Wise Visla, thank you."
She reaches out and places her hand on your shoulder and mutters a few things. The language isn't the same as you're familiar with, but the cadence of it and the gestures remind you of your grandmother.
Yes.
Very, very, very much. And you feel a warmth spread through you as her hand touches you. And she looks you dead in the eye, and smiles and says, "Don't hide the injury from me, child," in your language, almost as if she speaks it fluently. You've seen your grandmother do the same thing with Outlanders, by the way. And she says, I need you to show me the injury so that I may properly treat it. We do not want you to be a duckling with a wounded wing for the rest of your life.
I'm for a second I'm a bit shocked, and she's exactly like my grandmother. And I turn, you're right. I'm so sorry. You are completely right. And I show the arm. I take off the coat and show the splint, and I kind of like wince as it's purple and black and swollen.
He looks at it and says, and she pulls out a knife and says, "This will not do. This will have to come off." And she starts moving towards your arm.
Oh, I wish I was there. Shit.
So I grimace, but I'm familiar with the process, so I know what's coming. But I sit there and I meditate.
Yeah. She reaches out and takes your arm gently in her left hand, pulls your arm out towards you, brings the knife down, and gently begins cutting the bindings on your splints until they fall away. And she looks up at you. She sees this meditative look, and she said, "Do you think I was going to take your arm, young man? I'm no barbarian." So
no, not at all, not at all, not at all. I didn't mean that.
No old sawbones like the Dunedain rely upon in far off Cardolan. And she spits on the ground at that. And then
but please, this I'm not fine. I'm fine, but there's another one of our company, Manos the elf. He's in dire need.
I'll take care of the elf. He won't die. She looks at your arm and she actually manipulates your arm a bit, and it actually begins to hurt. And you actually feel a grinding sensation in your elbow where that break is. And might even actually, pull a bit of a
tear,
possibly a cry of pain or something from you as she does that.
Definitely.
And she stops and looks up and says, "Yes, I know exactly what this needs." And she goes into her bag and she pulls out a mortar and pestle. She actually yells across the room to Mynardil and says, "Dunedain, bring me some water."
I'm not here.
And
she asked for wood.
Okay.
I left the house.
Where did he go? Yeah. And she looks around and she mumbles something under her. She mutters something under her breath about Dunedain always leaving when you need him the most. And she looks at one of the warriors and says, "Fetch me water." And he nods and goes and gets her water. And she begins washing your arm very gently.
Yeah, and as she's working, I lean in to the wise woman, the wise healer. I whisper, "Is this one Menardil? Has he been here before?" He's
not to my knowledge.
Oh,
not to my knowledge.
Oh, I see.
But he is Dunedain. There's a look about them. We all know that look. They've come many times here to the village with their flowery words and their tales of glory and songs of battle, and they inflame the hearts of the young, and they lead them like a jolly gleeman out of the village off to war, and the only ones who return on their shields.
If I can, Keith, I'll re-enter the scene with an armful of lumber because I've just been out to the woods. And as she says that, I'm going to say, and we lure them away like a Pied Piper of the damned, as I actually take a knee and I'm going to start that fire she asked for.
Okay. Yeah, she looks over her shoulder at you, and she sort of as you say that, she gives you almost a piercingly dirty look, but then it's almost as if she reconsiders, like, okay, and she turns back to Sura, and she says, "Well," and she reaches into her pouch and she had a mortar and pestle out, and she reaches in and gets some stems out of some kind of plant and begins grinding them. Some of the water that she's had brought over, she adds to it, and she begins whispering some words over it. You do catch at some point the word Yavanna in there, which is one of the Valar specifically of plants and trees. And you sort of feel this almost a whisper, under the whisper of something else, of something coming into the building from out beyond, and going down and infusing this poultice that she's putting together. And she takes this poultice, she begins vigorously rubbing it into the area around your elbow where it's purpled and broken. And though the way she's doing it you would think would hurt, where her hands touch with this poultice, the pain begins to subside.
Mm-hmm.
And once she's done,
she's working on this, and she sort of did that sort of that muttering and saying those words, and that feeling changed in the room. I then lean over, and with my good arm, I sort of brush the brilliant white wolf's pelt, the hood or the head of the pelt of the wolf's head, and I pet it and gently caress it, and I whisper a muttering a prayer to Norsu, the spirit of the winter solstice, and sort of in gratitude and recognition for this blessing. And as she's working as well, and as Menardil is mulling about, I mentioned to the wise woman, wise mother, I do not know your name.
You may call me Mather Keenan. I am the wind speaker of this town.
The wind speaker.
Yes.
Interesting. I have a grandmother who was we call them a Visla, but I believe she also knows of the skill of the arts of healing and of sight. Thank you so much.
Yes.
My name is Sura.
Yes.
I am the son of Linda, and it is good. And for this Menardil, though he does look quite terrifying at times.
I shoot Sura a dirty look as I'm pretending to ignore you guys.
I quickly drop eye contact as I look away quickly. He is a skilled warrior, and he fought bravely against the ones that walked the corpses that are inside the barrow dens. He's a good warrior.
She nods quite a bit and sort of mutters under her breath an affirmation of as you're speaking, but she pays attention more to your arm than what you're actually saying. And eventually, faster than you expect, she has your arm bound in some kind of it's a woven wool, almost like a scarf, that holds your elbow at an angle, but it restricts your movement quite a bit. And she begins infusing that bandage with this mixture that she's put together. And she looks up at you and says, that this must be left on for at least, I would say at least half a fortnight. If you remove it before then, you may not have use of that arm.
I understand.
Make sure it heals properly. And she sort of sits back on her haunches and looks at you and says, "This Menardil," and she looks over her shoulder at him. She said, "I have learned through long life not to judge too harshly those of different peoples. But in my experience, the great warriors of the Benedane, they will lead you often into trouble and lead many, as they call us, lesser men to their deaths. Beware of that."
Still hear both of you.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm sure he's nothing. I'm sure he's nothing like the other Dunedain. I truly believe that as I look at you, Menardil, and then I remember you carrying me off literally. And I think
I just shoot him.
I begin to doubt myself for a second.
Kid.
And she looks over her shoulder as you say that and says, "You are meant to." and she sort of just gives you this level look. And as she gets up and she walks over to Manos and
Thank you so much.
starts addressing.
Thank you so much.
No, she
Lady,
looks over
so
at
much
you.
better.
if you would not have any more use of a scoundrel like me, I would go for a walk and dismiss myself.
Okay. She looks up and she just sort of like she waves her hand like that as you go.
What if the chieftain
as
comes,
she looked at,
Menadriel?
I asked her permission. I didn't tell her I was leaving. If she wants me to leave,
Right.
she'll let me leave.
yeah,
But
so she sort of motions the hand,
okay,
letting you leave, if you will.
And
Okay.
he's actually gonna go for a walk through the village.
Okay. And as she moves over to Manos and begins looking at his leg, he looks down at her and he says, Keenan, you may judge Minardil too harshly. And she looks up at him and says, my own son followed one of them to his doom. And he says, yes, he did. But Minardil is not here, I believe, to lead men into war. So he's a knowledge seeker. He's a teller of tales. And well, there are tales that need to be told now of darkness gathering about. And she sort of nods and said, you've always had a wisdom, Manos. Even my grandmother said so. He says, yes. How is she? And she looks up at him and says, dead these last 40 winters. And he says, oh, I'm sorry. I forget. So, and he sort of leans back a bit as she dresses his leg and sort of
Look
shakes her head.
horrified in the background. I'm like, oh wow.
Well, the thing is, as he leans back and she sort of shakes her head, you see him sort of wink at you over her shoulder, to Sura, and you can sort of get a glimpse of sort of the side of her face rising up, possibly in a smile, almost as if that's a running joke with them. So, as Minardil heads out of the longhouse there, let's see here. You see the village. There's probably about 30 people who've sort of gathered outside of the longhouse across an open square. At the center of this square is a well. Obviously, it's the public well for people to get water from. And you see this group. It's just basic townsfolk. It's women come with buckets that are taking a little bit too long to draw the water. There's young children sort of come to get a looky-loo at the outsiders. Several of the children, as you come walking out, sort of point at you. Though you can't quite hear what they're saying. They seem to be talking in whispers.
I just wave pleasantly as the Strix can, which is that's a coin toss if it's pleasant or not. He'll wave, he'll smirk, but it'll not be like, hey,
Okay.
But I'm going for a walk. Yeah.
Okay, so as you're walking across this square and you're looking at these faces, you see down one of the side streets heading up that way. Being actually walking with Barafale, you see a familiar face. You see your companion Belflecca.
Bow! And I'll just, as I now have kind of like made a scene in the main thoroughfare there, and I'll actually jog up to meet them.
Strix?
There you are.
Well, I'll be damned.
And I'll bro hug him. We've got a new face. It's a baby that walks like a man, and Manos cut his leg real bad. But and I'll point out the house. We can catch up later. I need some air. All right? Go for a walk.
Right.
I'll see you
You all
shortly.
right?
Yeah, oh no, I'm well. your people don't like sailors. So, and I'll kind of like wink, like he knows they don't.
Yeah.
They don't like Numenorians. They just associate Numenorians with Dunedain, and I'm guilty by association. And that wink says all of that. So my Arabelle is gonna.
So,
I'm gonna walk the perimeter of the village, and if I see any dwarves, I'll speak to them. Actually,
okay. At the moment, you haven't really seen any dwarves yet.
I will walk until I find one.
Okay. What do you what you do see is you see pretty much everywhere you walk, there are eyes on you. Obviously, one thing being Dunedain, you're about a head taller than most people here.
Oh yeah.
So seeing a tall figure, so to see that tall figure walking through is going to draw the eye. More than once, you see a young girl looking out of their of a home, possibly, or a shop. Her eyes falling upon you, and a bit of a smile forming at the corner of her mouth before you see a more matronly figure behind coming in and grabbing the girl, sometimes by the braid of their hair, and jerking them back in and slamming the door.
I specifically do not. I'll notice, but I'm not looking at any of the young women here, because if you look at the wrong young women in Herod, you're gonna get stoned. So
right.
my Nardale is old hat at this.
Okay, so as you're all walking along, you do hear, eventually your ear catches the sound of dwarven singing. A single voice.
2 poems in the dwarvish language, and I only know how to say hello, and that's it.
Well, you don't necessarily know what they're saying, but you can recognize the language as dwarven. And that sound draws you to a village inn, if you will, a bit of a tap house. As you walk into this you walk into this inn, you see the tap room has long benches arranged all through it. There's a large fireplace at one end that's keeping the place pleasantly warm. The smell of good strong ale.
What was the weather like today?
It had begun to warm a bit, but it's still it's still fairly cold, not very far above freezing. But it's a clear day, so it's a clear, crisp day. I guess you'd say outside.
Climate, like, would you say like Denmark, Great Britain, Germany? What climate?
Think of this probably as probably the like middle lands of Germany. It's cold, and it's in the winter it stays cold. There's several days that will get above freezing, but for the most part, when the freeze comes, it stays there.
Then my Nardale, being the cultured man that he is, would know that best drinks for nowadays, and possibly the best things I could possibly get would probably be like a hot cider or a mulled wine. But I'll go inside. I'll follow the singing.
Yeah. So the first thing you notice is a smell of good strong ale and beer.
Lovely.
And there seems to be some kind of this person singing up next to the fireplace is a dwarf. Has a very long beard. He's dressed similar to the Lendings who you see around there, and behind the bar is something you almost never see. You see a female dwarf, a dwarf woman tending the bar.
Oh, by the tresses of Lady Kaeda of the Emerald Hall, and I actually walked her with the grace of a courtier. I take a knee at the bar. Milady, your hair is the most beautiful of black silks. And I stay there. He's perfectly made an ass of himself. And I wait for her to address me.
She looks at you, leans over the bar, and says, well, I'll be just flattered senseless, but you don't drink for free.
I take out
at which point
big sack of money. I'm like, let thy money is of no object, my dear.
Oh, that flatters me even more so than the pretty words.
Shake
pull up a stool here, fellow there. And the people who looked and saw you do this, at first, the very first thing you sort of saw was make a presence roll. Make a presence roll. Oh, quick, Belfleck, are you with him? Did you go with him, or did you go on to the long haul?
No, okay. I kept going.
Okay. I told Belle that we were going to meet up later. I'm going for a walk. Okay. So this is a completely different scene.
Okay.
My presence is that is a 116.
Okay.
With the grace of a courtier.
So you did did this with a wonderful amount of grace. At the first sight of you, the bar almost turned dark as you walked in. But that display and her reply brought some chuckles among some men. And it did cause the dwarf to stop singing for a moment and sort of look at you with a very critical eye. But with the reply of the barkeep that caused a bit of a laugh, and the dwarf himself was probably the biggest one to laugh. And as you plop up there and put your coin up on the bar, she looks over and says, "Husband, keep singing. You weren't done." And
I will put
he nods and
6 of my gold pieces down. I say, 2 for the beautiful voice at the hearth.
I will let him know that you find his voice so beautiful. What brings a warrior of the Dunedain to this little village of Tolman?
I am a far-traveled man, but I find myself in the old dwarf lands because one dear friend of mine, descended from a long beard, told me that there was the tongs of Hadnar were somewhere in these lands, and possibly the file. And I have been looking for these such tongs, and I would wish to return them to a Longbeard that would appreciate them and cherish them as they should be cherished.
You say you found these the tongs and files, or you're looking for them?
I am looking for them. They are near. They're near. I know they are here.
They very well could be. I mean, I've heard the tales myself. Every young Dom and Dom have heard that tale of the Smith the Smiths of Hagnar, and the beautiful weapons and tools that came out of that smith.
Of course.
But those forges have been cold for a long, long time. And where they burned have been lost.
I know, but I am of my people, but I am not amongst them.
Yeah, obviously.
I understand that Dunlendings don't like us sailors.
Well, you see, and she gets a mug and begins cleaning it out as it's been dropped off by Dunlending barmaid, and she sort of shoos her away with a fresh tray of beer.
A red cider, please.
So
to start off.
Oh, of course. She wipes this thing out pretty vigorously. Then goes over and pulls you some cider from a large cask and sits it down in front of you and takes a bit of your money.
Keep that coming until the money is gone, please.
Will do. And she sets that coin actually over at the base of the barrel. There's a little board with a notch in it that the coins sort of stand up in, and she puts it there and marks a tick with some chalk beneath it. And she says, of course they don't like you much. I mean,
Look at me.
for as long
I
as
am
they,
unhandsome with this scar. I got cut
yeah,
myself shaving one morning.
that's not what causes their eyes to want to look at you in such a way, the scorn and such in their eyes. It's the fact that for as long as they can remember, your kind have come into these villages, and they come in with these rousing stories to go fight for the land of Arthedain, or for this house or for that house, and they stir the passions of the young men and the young women. And next thing you know, a band decides to go off to war to earn glory along with the Rangers of the North. And rarely do they come back. And when they do, they're either dead or
Injured or maimed,
broken.
of course. Uh,
Yes.
Lady, your name. I am in my lands where I fall. I am the Strix, but my friends call me Minardo.
My name is Halea.
Leia, to set any misfortune or any unkind thoughts that may do me wrong in the minds of my peers. Rousing stories, yes, I do not. I'm not. I am not to take any warriors, young men away from here.
I'll spread the word.
I'm simply here for the tongs and to return them to the long beards that they belong to.
Well, she refills your mug as it gets about halfway full, and she sits down for a bit as she's her tidying up. She's pretty much done for a moment as her husband takes a big long pull of beer and begins another song. And she says, "So, have you come to face Grandin yet, the warder chieftain?"
Yeah, he stink-eyed me pretty good, and I did not like
He
his
would.
tone, but I didn't challenge him much.
Yeah, he would. You see, he himself has a particular hatred of your kind for
Yeah.
the last band,
Callantyre had a
to
go at a
be,
family member of his.
well, a young man representing Callantyre came and spoke his flowery words and sang his songs of glory, and one of the young men he ensnared was his little brother.
Well, Callantyre has a flowery vocabulary, not unlike mine, but I am of Telpinar. Yes, my sister is a ranger,
I've heard of Telpinar.
but I am in seasonal service to Elrond in the west, in the east,
Ah, I've heard of him in the last homely home. But yes, you'll have to forgive Brandon is that he mourns his younger brother.
Perhaps I'll light a
He knows
candle
not
for
his
my
fate, but
brother.
it's been 3 winters since that he left. Okay,
Well,
him and a band of 25 fed to the fires of Angmar.
damn Callantyre.
She looks
damn
around and
Angmar.
says, "You're no friend of, yeah, so
Yeah,
you're
no,
no
that
friend of
answers it.
Angmar either." Okay, that's good. Though she leans forward and says, "There are men here who whisper of that Angmar treats the Dunlending better than the Dunedain do."
Ah, I would say probably sometimes,
Mhm.
but I assure you, I am far traveled. I am of these houses, but I am not with my people.
Okay.
There's again some of that misty eye kind of and I'll take another pull and
Okay.
whenever
Okay.
Minardo references his sister, he gets quiet.
Mhm. Okay. Well, with that pull, as we see his eyes get misty, we sort of pull back from that scene, and we zoom through the town back to where Bella Flecka was heading up to the longhouse. And Bella Flecka, since you've just joined us, would you give us a bit of a description of Bella Flecka and maybe a bit about what he's heard recently within the town himself?
Bella Fleck is a Dunlending. He kind of tends to be indescript and he kind of likes it that way. He would rather blend in with the crowd than be one to be pointed out. If you were to see him in a crowd of people, you would probably call him plain among plain. Brown hair, brown eyes, usually in some form of woodland color type of outfit as he does his scouting and hunting. When he talks, though, he is actually quite animated and he's quite energetic when he gets on something he actually enjoys. Otherwise, he tends to be the nice, quiet type. Lately, though, while he has been away from his friends, he has been mostly hunting, scouting, looking for information, mostly keeping out of harm's way, out of eyesight of those that might want to cause trouble with him. It's not that he can't handle his own in a fight. It's just, what's the point if there's nothing to come out of it? He's just not really that type to want to get into a scuffle simply because there's blood to be had and someone's temper gets riled up. He has been actively attempting to avoid what he jokingly refers to as the village idiot and town bully in Furlan.
Yeah.
Because once again, he just doesn't see a point to that type of attitude. I mean, you're either an idiot. Sorry, go ahead.
One of the things you have noticed in the past couple of days while you've been here in the town of Tolman is this Fairlawn has twice after sundown called a gathering at a place called the Two Mules, which is an ale house down at the edge of town toward one of the gates. You may have overheard what was said there, but basically he's speaking about how he has spoken with representatives of Angmar who came to him not as some lesser man like the Dunedain do, but came to him as a great warrior and offered him a place among the armies of Angmar, and that if they were to come and fight for them when they have driven the Kumara from the north, that the Dolindings will be elevated up as the leaders of men here. They will be the nobility, not looked down upon by those curs from across the sea. And one of the things specifically that you heard, those who worship the devil or the devil Olmo, be pushed back in the sea where they wish to bring to the land. So, and there's a lot of young men who are listening to this, and you've noticed that for the couple of days you've been here, you hear them talking about him, and anybody who has been openly talking against him, there's been reports of them finding themselves pummeled in back alleys. So they're very, very much bully boys, if you will. But as you're walking across this square toward the longhouse, because of course that's where Manos is at the moment as well, you hear your name once again called out, Bella Flecka. But it's this time, instead of being the sound of Minardil's voice, this is the musical voice of an elven maid. As you look over and you see Eredrith, the apprentice of Manos, come darting up to you, that one that you had seen at the village before, the elven village. And she says, have you seen Manos? Is he well?
I was just on my way to go see him.
Oh, then I've come at the right time. And she says, I assume they have him here in this in the longhouse.
Yes.
Ah.
At least that's the last thing I heard.
She nods, and she proceeds to, like the queen, I guess almost like in a very queenly manner, she basically strides up to the door and opens. It has double doors. She actually pushes them both open, almost to make an entrance. So Sura, from your perspective, you see the door is open, and this elven woman, probably not much taller than you. Manos is as tall as Minority, maybe a bit taller, but this woman is probably 5'10", maybe, wearing similar
looking
clothing
up.
to what.
Yes,
But
I'm
wearing,
just looking up from rubbing a dog's belly, as if there are dogs anywhere.
Oh, yeah.
I would definitely be tending.
oh
to
yeah, yeah, there's dogs.
it. Yeah, definitely.
And they're very much, they have decided that they like you now because
I give them
you
treats
smell like a
as well.
wolf.
Yeah.
You see her come walking in with this other Dunlending beside her. It's her eyes are the blue of glacial ice, and her hair is the color of the sun just as it is beginning to set, almost a molten gold color, as she looks over at you. And at first you think she's looking directly at you, and she gets this look of, at first, of joy, then of concern. And she comes almost bounding towards you. And then she leans forward and says, "Manos, are you okay?"
I just taken aback for a second as I lean over. I'm next to Manos as well. I'm very, very close to him.
Yeah.
Just talking
yeah.
with him.
Mhm.
Oh, yes. I kind of lean back. I give him some space. I don't want to
Yeah.
get in the way.
It does get just a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
He looks up at her and he says, "I'll be fine with a bit of rest." Took a gash to the leg, which, by the way, now has the gash itself has been cleaned. A poultice has been placed upon it, and it has been sewn shut. Though that was a bit of agony there for a moment as Mather Keenan took care of that. She's already actually washing her hands now and washing all of her stuff. And she looks up at the two of them come in, and she looks directly at Manos and says, "You should not act too vigorously with that wound. You'll open it again." And he looks over at her and says, "This is my apprentice." He says, "I don't care what you call her. Don't be rolling her in the hay." And
You should listen
she
to
looks.
her.
Yeah, the elf maid sort of, she stands up and looks, and she says, "Oh my, Keenan, why would you ever think of something of that nature? An elf maid of my tender years of only 600 would not be seen to be rolling into hay with such an ancient figure as Manos." And Keenan sort of looks at her, and you see this grin come across her face, and she comes over and gives her a big hug and says, "Welcome, Meredith." And then she looks over at Bella Flecka and she says, "You came in with her? Your face I do not know."
No, I've been in town. I just happened to meet her upon coming over here.
And you just follow an elf maiden into the longhouse?
Oh, I met her in another town.
And Manos says, "This is Bella Flecka. He's one of our companions as well. Good to see you, Bella Flecka. Did you ever catch that rabbit?"
Well, actually, let's find out.
I'm currently nursing my cheek after in this time when I was sort of like, waiting around, just doing nothing. I attempted to help wise mother Keenan with something before she slapped me. For moving.
Yes. She does not want you to be very vigorously move at all.
I'm
fidgeting.
I'm just fidgeting, just like trying to do something.
Yeah.
Remind me, what do I roll for these?
For your hunting, let me see here. Let me pull up a
I was gonna do like a stalk hide, or
just do that's fine. Do a stalk hide. That'd be perfect because you're stalking a rabbit.
Right. So it's the skill plus what?
Plus 2d10, which will generate you a number between 1 and 100.
Okay.
So percentile. And if you roll above a 96 on the dice, you roll again and add your totals together.
Okay.
So.
All right, give me just a second here.
Okay. That's fine. Got to find those dice, huh?
Yeah.
I know what you mean. So you could roll d8s, but they won't quite get you the right numbers.
Right.
Okay. But yeah, so
Alright. So 36, and then I add in whatever I have for that skill, correct?
yeah, the total skill modifier, yes. So
122.
okay, yes, you definitely caught the rabbits. You've caught the rabbits and probably were able to bring them in and get a few coins for the pelts actually, and they're good eating too.
So he'll look at Manos. He'll give that kind of half smirk he does every now and then. And yeah, he'll be like, yeah, oh yeah. They were quite tasty too. Now I'm
Okay.
hungry.
Yes,
Thanks,
yes.
Manos. Now I'm hungry.
That's he said. Well, we've got some bread and some cheese, and at that you see Kenan look up and said, "Oh, just bread and cheese. Those men don't know how to wouldn't be able to feed a child grown men need actual real food and meat." And
I can go to the kitchens
actually,
and get something for you.
no, sit. And she points, and the way she says sit, it is very much a command.
Yes.
And Bella Flecka almost sits with the way she says it. And he said, "I will have one of the young men fetch you food. You are receiving the hospitality of this house and under my care. You shall not want for anything." So, and one of the guards actually scampers off, in search of some actual proper food of some type. About that time, you see
Bella Flecker and sort of like maybe move over like a rug, like a fur rug, to place for him.
Oh, there's plenty of places in this little sort of a cubby to sit. Yeah. It's basically like a little section off of the main hall. It's not actually like sectioned off, but it has its own sort of space feel to it. As he's this guard is hurried off to get some food, a couple of other people come into the hall. One, he seems to be getting into a large bear cloak, almost fussing with it as he comes to the door. And there's a young lady with him that seems to be helping him. And it's like they get just inside the door and finish with this thing. He stops and turns, and there's two other. Well, Grandin is one of the people who's there. You saw earlier, and they look over at you, and he sort of motions towards you, and Grandin nods, and he sort of, his eyes sort of shift a bit, and he comes walking over, and he says, I'm Brahm. I'm the art of the village. I hear you, Manos, and your companions there. You had an odd encounter last night at the Barrows. And he nods.
I nod as
and he
well.
sort of
He sort of, you honor us with your hospitality, great chieftain Ard.
Well, thank you. But it's odd to say chieftain for Ard in our language means chieftain, just so you know.
Oh, I'm sorry, I did not.
Brahm is the name.
I'm not from
that's
these parts.
Okay. You're an outlander, so yes. I can tell by your accent you're from the far north. I've done some trading with some people from the far north at the edge of the great sea of ice, the Hell Cracks.
Oh wow! Yes,
so I've not been there myself.
Yes, that is fortunate. But yes, my companions and I here, we encountered something last night while we were following a trail that led to the Barrows. We had made camp by there for, I believe, the one Minardo the Strix. He was searching for lost knowledge or an artifact, I say. And we heard something. And we followed it, and further down, I do not know exactly where, perhaps Manos, you may know, but we found an open barrow. There was something inside, things inside.
Yes.
Things that walked and that were dead. And
Manos says yes. Yes, this was what we encountered. It was the It was the mound of Garthoth, and Brom sort of tilts his head. He says, "The big one with stones around it," and he sort of nods. He says, "Hey," and Mono sort of shakes his head just a bit. I remember the memories are so short. Yes, that the great mound with the stones around it has been opened, and something has possessed the bodies within. It sent out corpses, walking corpses, armed as warriors, and which fought as warriors, but did not bleed or die as warriors. My companion Menardil, and you see him, Romsford, look around. He's like, "Companion," and he looks at Belflecca. He says, "Are you Menardil?" And Mono says, "No. This is our friend Belflecca. He's of your people, I believe." No, Menardil is a Dinadane. And Brom says, "Oh," he looks over at Granite and says, "That explains that." Okay. What were you saying though? He said Menardil actually disemboweled one, but it didn't seem to affect it at all. And friend Sura here, he has quite the aim with the javelin. Skewered one quite well, and
I'm not very good, but your bow, I saw it. The arrows pierced it, and these things they did not fall as they should have.
No,
and not only that, there was a voice, a dark song which hung in the air, which emanated from within. We did not see it, but there was some sort of sorcery, I think, that was going on in there. Perhaps men in robes. I cannot say why. I know.
Keenan at this looks over at you and says, "This song, did it make you weak make your bones weak? Did it make you feel unclean?"
It was not that precisely. It was I exhale deeply. It was as if a doom had fallen upon our heads. As if above us hung a headsman's axe and we were upon the block of execution. It was as if there was no hope and all had faded into darkness. That is what that song had felt. It was a sickening song.
Yeah. She sort of hurries over towards where you're at from where she was cleaning up, and she reaches out and she sort of punches Brom in his shoulder and says, "See, I told you, if you let that fool Ferlin out there preaches his devotion to darkness, dark things will be coming. This is what I was talking about." And he looks at her and he says, there's no link between a man speaking his mind and the dead rising. And she's, "Oh no, listen to me. Yes, there is. He's opened this place for darkness, and it's come to take our dead."
Sorry, but
it took the Dinadane's dead.
Who is this of whom you speak? Is there a man that has come to your village here? Who's singing these songs?
No, Brom says no. He's a rabble rouser within the town that seems to believe that somehow we should offer our allegiance to Angmar. We've always been loyal to Arthur Dane and fought alongside the Dinadane, though it's a alliance that has cost us much blood and life.
Absolutely. If there is a man, this man surely is a madman. He surely is confused if he comes singing glories of Angmar. They are a curse upon this world.
He speaks true. He speaks truthfully. And Brom sort of shakes his head, and then Manos sort of speaks up from where Manos is sort of at this point almost dozing off, because whatever she dosed him with seems to be almost like a it's obviously a healing drop, but it seems like it may putting him to sleep a bit. And he says, "Yes, and he's like, it's almost like he's missed part of the conversation and is answering the first question. He says, "Yes, the song, it was of darkness. It was the songs of the shadow. the songs that they once sang, going to war from the old lands of Atumno. I heard them once when the orcs issued forth, following their dragons breathing fire.
I shudder
These
at the
songs they
mention
would
of orcs
sing.
and dragons.
And he, as he's saying this, he's sort of fading into almost like he's falling asleep. He said the songs they would sing, they would echo from the mountains, and the very ground itself would shudder, and it would turn your bones to water. And he sort of falls asleep. Yes, he says that.
Manos, I kind of whisper. There was something else, and I kind of, as he dozes off, I leave him and I turn to the chieftain and the others. There was something else. While we were there, the Strix, Minardo, he also knew a song as well, which he sung, which seemed to have dulled the song that came from the barrow, the dark song, which the song of doom. Perhaps he may know no more. I'm sorry, I don't know where my companion has gone. He left, and I am been forbidden to go and search for him, even though I've asked 3 times.
You see Matthew Keenan sort of rolls her eyes. I told you can't go look for him. You're not well.
I'm not going to go anywhere, wise grandmother.
The warrior who had been sent to find you food comes back with a couple of big bowls of stew and a big piece of bread. And as he comes up, she sees him and she says, Here, give me that. Now go find the Dinadane. And he's like, The Dinadane? She says, yes, go find the Dinadane. We need him here. We'll find him. And he sort of nods and turns and hurries out. So
I passed Strix on my way here. At least gives you a direction.
So the fellow looks at you and looks at her, and she says, well, where did he go?
And I'll just give him the direction that I was coming from, where I met Strix at, like the intersection right there.
And she says, well, go that way and find him. Then it should be easy to find here. His head will be popping up like a bird flying above the forest. So
okay, so no falcons around.
So as you head out there, Bella Flecka, as you see the guy take off and head down, he does, within just a little bit of time there, Minardo, you'll be a Dunedain warrior will step into the bar and see you there.
Oh, one of my
and he'll
people?
Look at you. No, not sorry. Dunlending.
The Dunlending
will step in.
We're both dead.
He steps in and he says, there's the Dunedain. And he says, come, the Ard wishes to speak with you.
I'll be along with the Ard when I'm finished eating.
Mather Keenan
your people have accosted me enough this afternoon.
There's good stew there.
There's good stew right here. And I smile very lovingly at the barmaid.
And she leans forward, and Halaya leans forward and says, Minardil, you may need to go with the fellow. I'm pretty sure the Brahm has more things to do than just to wait for you to finish the meal here. Take them all with you.
Oh, can I?
Yes.
I bring it
Take
back.
them all with you. Of course you will.
I find.
If not, she reaches out and pulls a coin across from the from your stack.
You have money.
I'll just hold this.
Pay for it. No, but Minard says he's not drunk. I've been drinking, yes, but he's not drunk.
Yeah.
But I find your radiant smile and your husband's beautiful voice far more better company than these. And I'll actually start bitching and moaning in the Actually, no, it'll be Sindarin, and actually, well, for whatever
Okay.
fucking alien tongue it might be to her, but he's not happy from getting up here.
Yeah.
I've got basically a trencher of the bread ball. I'll be right back.
Mhm.
I have
Okay.
to shoot this. How old is this kid? Is it? How old is he?
This guy's probably 18, maybe.
I just
You
shoot
know,
him.
just old enough to have a bit of a fuzz of beard. So,
Lad, you are unaccustomed
right.
to giving orders. Wait until your beard is as magnificent as I point to Haitha's husband. Lead on. I just shoot
Okay.
this kid.
He
Dirty,
nods.
like angry owl look.
Yeah, he nods and then sort of looks past you back at Halea and sort of nods almost as if thank you. And she says, "Come back when you're done, Minardial. I'll have more waiting for you. And a room besides."
Beautiful. Thank you. I'll be right back.
Okay. As
I actually at the
so he-
doorway, I'll turn around and bow like a courtier to
Yeah.
everyone in the. I'm
Okay.
taking my merry sweet time. I don't want to go. I'm stalling, and so for chronology,
Okay.
it takes forever for me to get back.
So, there is in the Longhouse, just so you know, an artifact from far south Gondor, something that at some point some ancestor acquired on a travel or was gifted. It's a water clock, and it seems forever that the group sort of sits there listening to this water drop, 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 drop. And it seems like an impossibly long time before finally this young warrior comes in with the Menardil, who is wiping the last of this.
Dragging his feet.
Yeah.
Literally dragging his feet.
He's probably just taking the last heel of this bread and getting the last bit of this stew out of this trencher as he comes walking in. And you see this fellow in this resplendent bear cloak. There's a Dunlending maid with a very, very blazingly red hair standing next to him with her hands on her hip, looking at you like she's about to possibly launch at you with claws, maybe. It's hard to say. There's, of course, Erdrith, the Manos' apprentice. Manos, who seems to either have gone to sleep or possibly died while you were gone. It's hard to say. And of course, Sura, with this look as if he's trying to get away from the corner where he seems to be pinned by this, by this Maitre Keenan, almost as if she has positioned herself in a position to where if he tries to sneak past her, she can whack him. And of course, Bella Flecka.
Yeah.
I salute Belle. I don't give a shit about anyone else in that room.
Okay.
I'm unofficially the anti-hero of this campaign.
That's okay. So as you come walking in, it's you hear that drip, drip, drip a few more times, and then Brahm sort of clears his throat and says, "You must be Minardil."
Who is asking?
The lady steps forward. The redhead steps forward, and she says, "This is Ard Brahm, chieftain of the village."
Ah,
I cough.
good evening, liege. And I again bow sarcastically like a courtier.
And you actually hear him say under
presence. Okay. It's a very pretty bow with a 92.
Okay. You actually hear him say under his breath, "Finally, someone with manners." And the young lady sort of elbows him as he says this. And she says, you've been drinking already, it seems. I can smell the cider on your breath there.
I can still talk.
Hmm.
It'll take
And
any of your dwarves to actually drink me under the table. I've had far more drinks and talked about more courtly things in other lands. Please continue.
Yeah.
And I'm actually eating.
Yeah, Brahm. Yeah. Bromwich, you've actually brought to the bowl of stew if you wanted, actually, because they are, by the way, Sura, you're probably on your second or possibly third bowl of stew, whether you want it or not.
Yes.
Just saying.
Yes,
Oh, yeah.
I am. I am
Well, Flecky,
trying
you're
to
probably
eat.
also eating.
I'm eating
Yeah.
slowly,
Yeah.
I
suffering,
run
but
out of
enjoying
stew.
it.
I refill my,
So,
my Red Bull.
So Brom reaches forward and puts his hand on the lady's shoulder and says, "Kylie, will you please go and well, just go. I don't want you killing him yet. And besides, a bit of alcohol, it lubricates the tongue. Maybe he'll speak truthfully." And she looks back and says, "That's men never speak truthfully to me. They've been drinking ever."
I feign insult.
She just shakes her head and walks past you, her green eyes staring daggers at you. She steps out. Just finally, sorry about that. Sorry about my daughter. She's well, I don't since my son died. She's been being groomed for the position of Ard once I'm gone,
I'm so
and I think
sorry
it's
to hear
going
that.
to her
Art.
head a bit. It happens. Wars take many, and he chose to go. I'm not bitter about it. He looks at Bernardo like some. I hear you know songs of power.
Yes, we were speaking of what we saw, Minardo.
Of course your tongue would wag, Sura. Shut the hell up next time. I shoot him a look that probably backhands him from across the room.
I look shocked. and I shut up.
That is no concern of anyone's here, less the youth.
The reason I ask this is it seems from what his tale was telling us that there is a thing there in the Barrows that knows some songs of power of its own, the power of the shadow.
I can confirm.
And he said that you sang a song that countered its song and was able to clear away some of the effects of it.
I shoot Sura a dirty look that'll curdle milk.
That's what I think had happened. I could be mistaken. It was dark. I did not see anything.
What he heard was the wind, and it bolstered his confidence.
Mhm. Uh-huh.
Which is a lie. What do I roll for a lie?
Yeah.
What do I roll for a
That
lie?
would be, what do you roll for a lie? You will roll. Let me get over to that page here again. Where'd it go? Come on. Oh, I'm over here.
All right, well, tell me what I have
For
to-
that, is that going to be a deception? Let me see. This doesn't have deception again.
Wrong system.
Wrong system. We don't have deception. We don't have
Public speaking,
give
just
me a-
because.
Can it be presents?
yeah, do presents. Make
Sure,
it presents. That's fine.
Yeah, 145.
Okay. All right.
Can I
So
choose
you
to
tell
fail, and that's a lie.
well,
it's a bald face lie.
yeah.
But
He actually sort of at that he sort of shakes his head and he sort of waves at you, and he walks across the room and goes and sits in that one chair at the far end. And
is that
he
chair
looks at you
anything like
and
a throne.
yes,
All right.
especially when he sits in it.
All right.
Before it looked sort of simple. Think of it as it's just sort of a basic chair that has no back, but it has arms and it has a pile of furs on it. And he sits on it, leans on one arm, and he looks at you for a minute. And he says, "You have nothing to fear in my hall, my Nardil of the Strix. I know there are those among my people who look at you with a suspicious eye, but I don't.
That gets a snort of derision.
I've also been a firm ally of both the Grey Havens and Arthur Dane for all of my life. I am a champion of the light. Orme, hopefully, has looked down upon me with pleasure as I've hunted the dark things in the forest.
I take
But I am
out
getting
my
old.
amulet and I kiss my amulet of Orme,
He
and I just
nods.
let it.
He sort of nods. He says, as that shows, you honor him as well, and he honors you with a gift, obviously.
I always know where West is. Yes.
Mhm. So with that, we, in a way, with the blessings of Orome, are kin. Maybe not as kin of family, of having the same descendants, but of having similar beliefs.
Kin
So you
of
do not need to
purpose.
fear me. You do not need to fear me spreading word of your knowledge of the songs of power. That is between us.
And
But
everyone in this room. I actually, my
he
gaze
actually
settles on
he
everybody.
actually looks up and he says, if anyone in this room speaks of what happens here tonight, I will have your tongue on a spit, grill it before you, and have my hounds eat it. Is that understood? And everyone nods and yes. Mhm.
Yes,
And
chieftain.
okay,
Uh,
they will not speak of it.
the Strix is satisfied with that oath. Then with
Okay.
that point, with that, he'll say, "Well, liege,
Mhm.
I would be honored if you would have me as a thane on this occasion. I was in the region looking for an artifact, the Tapestry of Anatar, and I'll actually let that
Hmm.
with gravitas actually
He
sink
nod.
in.
He sort of nods, and he doesn't seem to recognize the thing that you said, but Sura probably notices specifically because she's been hurting him. Whenever he says that, you see Mather Keenan sort of that gets her attention when he mentions that tapestry. Um, and you see Brom nods and he says, there have been people come through this area looking for artifacts for as long as I've been Ard and probably longer. There are ruins about the forests here, many of the old dwarven strongholds um, that have gone to seed. Could
I
be
can
one of those.
confirm to you that as a bard of my people, there are 4 poems and sets of couplets that I know, but only 4.
Well, that is a powerful thing. The songs of power, even if you only know 4, that's more than many know. Um, he actually reaches over and reaches down to a box, a strong box that's next to this throne, almost covered by these furs. And he opens it up and he reaches in and he pulls out a ring of silver, not like for a finger, but like a fairly large one. And he says, "So you offered me my thane for the time being, as you said."
Certainly. For the
He's
duration of this assignment, I will return
okay.
the arm ring when I am finished.
He nods and walks over to you and places it upon your arm. And he says, he says, wear this openly, wear this proudly, and no man who offers allegiance to me will lay hand upon you, will harm you." So
Then I am at your disposal, and my poems, my knowledge, anything that I can give you and help to see that the undead go back to their graves and rest.
well, he looks past you over to Sura and to Manos. He says, "For now, rest, um, regain your strength, and I will see what my men can find about this thing. We'll watch. We'll send some to look and see, and we'll send word to the rangers in the area as well of this thing, this dead walking, and see if we can ascertain any more information for you about it, or find someone who may have more knowledge of them."
Out of
And
character, what's the name
mhm.
of the tavern that Helena, the barkeep. What's her tavern called? I didn't ask.
Oh, that is simply called the Mine.
Oh, the mine. Oh, I believe it. I love
Such
the
a good name.
simplicity and the passion of it.
Mhm.
Uh,
Yes, the Mine.
a mine. Oh shit, I was gonna say something here. Continue. Sorry.
So, as he's speaking, you see Matthew Keenan sort of walks up by him, and she says, "Should we alert Pelendor?" She looks, and so yeah, if you want to do a intelligence check for anybody, if you've heard the name Pelendor, so
88.
okay, you have most definitely. But what you know of him is Pelendor is he is the head of House Gorthod, and a lot of the nobles, they see him as the ideal Dunedain, if you will. He's sort of like the poster boy. Stands about
ideal Dunedain.
well, he stands 6'7", has piercing
Oh.
blue eyes and long black hair. Some say that he actually has the bearing of Isildur himself.
Okay, if that's the case, then no. The Strix is like, no, don't talk to him. He's a fucking pretty boy.
Okay. But one of the things about him specifically is there is an area that it's to the east of here, but it's a place that all Dunedain are familiar with, known as the Barrow Downs. And his house is the house that was sort of known for taking care of them, making sure that they they were not forgotten, that they were in good maintenance, that the stones were clean, and they were the ones who, when a great lord would die, would open the mounds, and they had among them priests who would do the rites of burial. So you would know from him that when they say Pelendor, he's probably the best person as far as information to get about things that happen in Barrows.
Well,
so
the
although he is
Strix,
annoyingly
again,
very Dunedanish.
he's not of his people, so
No.
Meinardil knows that he would be an excellent source of information, but as a bard who is well traveled,
Mhm.
he is just a rival, and that is all he's to be respected for. So no, don't speak to him. Not at all.
Okay.
There's a hint of jealousy in his voice. Like,
Yeah, well, I will. And you see Brom sort of looks at you at that, and he looks over at Keenan, and he says, send the messengers. If he himself cannot come, have one of his borrow riders come if he may, if he's free.
also,
And she looks over at the young boy, and he sort of Sura specifically sees and knows this look. He sees the eye roll, like, again, as if he's being picked on to do everything for her. And he looks up and says, I'll fetch a rider and a fresh horse." And she looks up and sort of smiles and nods, and she said, "He's getting smarter. Doesn't just do it himself."
I know his pain.
Yeah, you've been through this. The idea of being looked at for everything and having to learn that you don't have to do it yourself as long as you make sure it gets done.
Yeah.
But yes, you have the hospitality of my house, and Minardil specifically, you have the hospitality of being my thane. So
I'll
be
come
welcome
again,
here.
like not half bow, but respectfully lower my head. Also, liege, if I may request a question from you.
Yes.
Who is the bearer of Imoldum?
That's the name I've not heard for quite some time.
I go into my journal and I show
Mhm.
him the page of the rubbing.
He was one of my ancestors. Clanada was his name.
Oh, good.
He was a chieftain in the Second Age.
Was he of goodly sort and
He
heart?
was, though he was a he was an enemy of your people at the time, as many goodly men were at the time, as they came to this land as raiders.
It kind of spills out quick as my Nardil's like, no, don't say that, but he's already past his lips. Well, I'm glad he didn't reach up and strangle me. Oh, we were investigating some graves, and I chose one at random, and for the purposes to make sure that the dead are still there, I took a rubbing from the cross guard. This is what you see.
So was my ancestor still lying in repose in his barrow?
Yes, sleeping like a babe.
That is good. It's sort of, you see the look across his face as it's like, you did what? But
I defiled the grave to make sure he's still in there, but it's like,
okay,
is
yeah,
he
you had a
fine?
good reason. You had a good reason, but oh Lord, this is something that I'm glad I swore these people to secrecy, because if that got out, it's already bad enough that he's a Benedane running around, but if he's known to be defiling graves, yeah, he'll be out of here on they'll have him on a rail, tarred and feathered, and out the gates before sunup.
I very strategically made sure that Strix ain't dumb guys.
So he sort of leans back and he says, well, for the nonce, as I said, get your rest, you're welcome here, get your food. If you need to have provisions drawn for this, I would charge you and your group with leading the charge on dealing with this thing in the barrows.
I'll make sure it gets done.
If you do so, and your group succeeds, I will commission a song in your honor. I will have a feast, and I will find gifts that are appropriate for each of you. But for now, rest and gather your strength. For I have a feeling that it's going to be difficult in the near future.
The Strix will retire to the mine and spend his evening there.
Okay.
Telling the poem, the only poem that he knows in the Dwarvish language, of Golun and actually Golun's hammer and the goblin pudding, which is a lewd body ballad where he will after some drinks will like burlesque himself, half straddling the hearth there, and with terrible Dwarvish. But it's supposed to be for entertainment purposes, but everyone knows the goblin pudding couplet. That's where Minardil will be having his evening.
Okay.
I will lean over to Belifleca if I can. As Minardil just leaves, takes his bow and leaves the long hall. I'll sort of speak to you quietly, Belifleca. I'll say, you are Belifleca, the hunter, the companion of Minardil and Manos here. Is that right?
Yes.
Do you know Minardil long? Have you traveled with him for a long time?
How long did we say, Mike? Like just shy of a year at this point, I think.
I believe so. It's been a little bit.
It's close on to a year. like 11
Long
months
enough to get to
years.
know a man.
Oh yeah, we're pretty good
Oh, well,
friends.
I wanted to ask, is he always like this at every town he visits?
Oh, Be-
I start laughing
Bellaflecca,
too, just like
Bellaflecca actually will chuckle just like that, and he'll look Sora in the eyes to he, right?
yes,
Okay,
a
sorry.
young boy with fair hair, sort of young, uh, the beginnings of a fuzz of a beard. He looks a little bit older than perhaps some of the young boys, the young sort of
Okay.
like 18-year-olds. He looks older, but it looks like it's taking a longer for his beard to come through. So he
All right.
still looks very young.
So-
But yeah.
So yeah, Bellaflecca, he'll chuckle, he'll look at you, and he'll take a small pull from his cup. Strix is Strix. He does what he does best. And if he's in a mindset that he doesn't want your opinion, well, by the gods, he's not going to take your opinion.
I've noticed.
Now, that being said, if he wants your opinion, he will usually take it to heart.
Hmm.
And by the deities, if you're someone he actually considers a friend, well, you have someone who's going to be there till doom befalls us all.
That's true. He has a look of definitely a look of a wanderer and a vagrant, if I was going to be honest with you. But he looks like a good man. He's brave. We fought those things, and he stood his ground, even though we all were calling to him to retreat, and he would still stay his ground, even though we should have been running. But still, he's brave, and that is good.
Yeah, me and Strix aren't really one to run. I do wish I could have been there for that
Yes.
fight, though.
Well, we're okay. I'm more, at least Manos is. I'm glad that he is. He took a nasty gash, and I've managed to do all I can to carry him and to mend him. But I had broken my arm by accident, and I could not tend to him as well as I normally could. But the matriarch Keenan told me that I need to wait another 14 days until this is all healed up. I'm afraid I can't be of much use until then. It's terrible, but it's good to meet you, Bellaflecca. I'm not sure if I mentioned before, but of course my name is Sora, as you know, and I happened to be on the road. I ran into Menadru and Manos, and they happened to be heading towards the direction that I had intended. I'm on a quest of a kind to find something. I suppose it's dreams. Sorry, I don't wish to speak about it. I do not know exactly myself, but I need to find something. I now know when I see it, but it's good to meet you.
You as well.
And with that, let's go ahead and come and call for some closing soliloquies. It's getting toward that time of the end of the game session tonight. So, Menardil, as you are singing your lewd songs there in the tavern, can you give us an insight into the mind that of what he has seen?
Before I do so, may I narrate a scene by a river so that I may
Certainly.
hopefully find myself in communion with a servant of the devil fish god.
Oh, certainly. There's that stream that runs at the base of the hill if you want to go to it.
I'm gonna make sure I'm at a portion of this stream that is well out of earshot and eyeshot after much drinking and carousing. My Nerdil can still think and do everything that he needs to. He's not shit-faced. Go by the river, go down, kneel, and with some couplets, recite some sutras and some chants. I will draw some water into a wooden bowl, and I will whisper my intent and my love for the great sea, upon whose blue breast that I have spent much time across and much love in the companionship of. And should I actually roll anything, or is it simply my intent?
Do me a the base spell check real quick.
Base spell check. We're all the way down here. Where are
Yeah,
you?
base OB.
Where is mine?
It should be toward the bottom of your character sheet. So not the, well, it should be. I'm not sure. I can't remember which character sheet it is that you're using actually.
The electronic one that we had. I said it's base spells. Is it base OB?
Yeah, it should be down like around, yeah, base OB.
Okay. Oh, here. Oh, is this essence? What am I channeling? Or
this is, yeah,
just base.
it's just a base. It's
Okay.
base OB. So
Okay. Oh, beautiful. All right. So that's 897, and let's see what we got here. That is a OB of 163.
okay. You put your intention out. What is the specific intention that you're putting out?
I seek guidance on my road ahead. I inform Ulmo, should he be listening, or a servant of him, should they be listening, that I came in a very, very, very concerning brush with the Walking Dead, and I feel that my arm is not as strong against such a foe as it should be, and I insert an apology of I am not as sturdy for your will as I wish to be. Please give me guidance. Please give me strength.
Okay. You hear as you finish this prayer that you put out, you hear the wind pick up as it moans along the top of the ridge, and you catch the faint scent of the sea, just a small breath. You think you may actually hear the sound of a gull somewhere off in the distance.
Oh, yes.
And then it seems to wash past you, heading in the direction that you feel it going towards, up toward the city there. As that wind blows, it blows into the town, down the narrow streets, causing some torches and such and lanterns to flicker as it blows by, eventually coming to the town square. And it blows, and it actually causes a shutter on one of the windows of the longhouses to flap open. And this breeze blows in and blows right into the face of Surah. And Surah's eyes roll back into his head as he begins to see. He sees the Barrow, the wind whipping across the grasslands there. But this is not, he's not seeing the Barrow as if he's standing there. He's seeing it almost from a bird's perspective. But it is dark where he's seeing it, but he can see perfectly clearly. And to his left is a luminous figure that is seems to be the color of sunlight through dappled leaves in the spring. And to his right, he hears more than senses the presence of something that has the same sound as the crashing of waves, though he cannot see it directly. From the left, he has whispered into his ears, they fear fire, they fear sunlight, and the magic of the dwarves may be drawn out and may be cast upon them, and it will shatter them as the waves crashing against the ice. And from the right, he hears a very deep voice, as if echoing from water-filled caverns far, far off. He says, to protect oneself, there is a spell. The Mather knows it. She may cast it upon you. Just ask her for her protection and the protection of Orome. And these words that are crashing into your head, it's almost like when the words hit you, it's like the feeling of a gale force wind full of sleet slamming into your brain. So that what Bellafleca actually sees, if he's there, is he sees Sura's eyes closed and him begin to almost have a seizure. And it doesn't last very long, just a few seconds, few brief seconds, enough for Mather Keenan to walk over with some concern. And as she leans over him, his eyes clear. And I'm going to go ahead and do the soliloquy with Sura first because of that. We'll come back around to Monardo's soliloquy there. So as your eyes clear there, Sura, what do you see and what is going through your mind?
Yes, indeed. As we sort of just jump back just a few moments just before that, that overpowering sense, that vision, sitting there in the warmth of this long hall, in this place of safety, the sluggishness of the pain, the dull ache, the being tended to by the skilled arts of Matrith Keenan, and in the warmth of this great hall, this place, I reminisce about home and the events of last night and the terrible things I've seen. That all that seems to wash away and kind of fade away as one hand and my hand pets a nearby dog that's resting by on the rug, and I pet it, and it then turns, and then I use that hand to once again put my hand on the wolf's fur coat pelt, and once again whisper a prayer to Norsu. Thank you for this for this great fortune that you provided me in finding these good people, these goodly hunters, and I must be careful with my words. I fear that I may have offended Menadriel, though he is one to be easily offended, it seems. I must do better to make sure that I partake of these customs of this strange land. Oh, great Norsu, great spirit, I pray for the safety of Manos, and I pray for the well-being of us all here. And I thank you for this gifts of hospitality that we have been given by the great Ard, the chieftain here, and Matrith Keenan. She reminds me of my grandmother so much. I miss you. I miss you so terribly. I can't do nothing. I need to get back to you. Lumi, Isha, Junie, my father Ganis. I need to see your faces again. I can't sit here and wait for 14 days to do nothing but heal this stupid arm. I need to do something, and I will at least do this, grandmother. I will at least practice, and then I'll gingerly with one arm and reach into a large sack full of clothing and spare clothing, but fetching from the depths, wrapped in furs and leathers, I take out a bowl of silver and ivory, so burnished, old, very old. This strange ornament, this small bowl, perhaps half the size of a coconut shell. It's very small but very precious, and I lay the wolf's pelt on my lap and the bowl upon the pelt on my lap, and I in the shadows that dance in the warmth of the fire, in the dim glow of this place, as it grows into the evening, I take out a small pitcher of water and I pour it in, and I look into that bowl, and I don't see anything. And I struggle and I try to focus, but the pain in the arm, and I don't see anything, and I spend some time growing frustrated with my efforts and unable to help, unable to know more, perhaps get a better picture of what I'm looking for here, what I need to do in order to become a Visla and return as a skilled healer for my people, for my village, for the Yavaki. And just as I turn away, I then see the door almost open, and that wind shoots, and I get hit by that vision as those images flow around me in my head, and I lose track as the bowl in my lap begins to shake, as my legs begin to spasm, as the bowl then tips, and I see something, a glimpse something in the water. The bowl tips, the water spills on the pelt, and I fall back, and I see that burning. I see that those things. I hear that voice, and I shake, and I see worried faces of Bella Flecka, perhaps, and even Matrith Keenan above me. I'm confused for a second, but I saw that the most powerful image I've ever seen. Now I've heard things, and my blue eyes sort of dull now. They begin to sharpen as I regain, and I hold on to that. I ignore the questions. I ignore any sort of inquiries as to what happened or how I am. I just focus on that, because that was a vision. That was a gift that I need to see. That I need to commit it to memory as I meditate on that for a second, and I burn it into my brain. I have the next piece. I need to speak to Minadro. Secretly, quietly. I have to tell him about this. I think I may know. I think I know how to stop them. How to make everything right.
And as you sit up from that vision, you instinctively reach out with that arm, that shattered arm, to steady yourself. And at first, you think that you're going to wince in pain, but you don't. The arm holds you. And as you look at it, you see Maester Keenan leaning over you. Says, "Are you okay, child?"
Yes, I'm fine. Don't worry about me. Oh, I'm fine. I think it's some of the ale, I think. I think. Sorry, I think I dozed off and I dreamt something.
She leans back and looks at you, and she has a knowing look in her eye. And she says, "As you wish." And she goes back to what she was doing, but she sort of keeps an eye on the side there. So, and since Bella Flecka is, yes.
As the scene ends, I would say, Matrith Keenan, may I ask for your blessing as the scene fades?
Okay. She sort of nods and moves back to you, and our vision moves over to Bella Flecka. And what do we see in his mind at this time with all of these?
Bella Flecka at the moment, he kind of took the whole conversation that happened in front of him in a couple of different ways. One, he's going to go because that's his friend, regardless of what else happened. That's his friend. He's going. Another part of him is kind of enjoying being around his kinsmen again. It is honestly kind of few and far between when that gets to happen. When he's hearing of the attacks and the undead and everything else, he does remember that fight they had in town with the rain and the mud and everything. And part of him's like, I really don't want to go through that again. But then the other part of him's like, oh, we're going to have to go through that again, aren't we? So his brain's in he's in turmoil, but it's also one of those, we're going to come to the same conclusion no matter which way we think about this. And that conclusion is we got to go take care of this situation. We just now have a mission and a purpose, so to speak, with it on top of what we had before. As Sora has his little mini seizure, Bellaflecca, who is actually mid-drink, would actually stop his drink and just raise an eyebrow as Sora's going through this for the all of, like you said, probably less than a minute of this. And as the other person comes over, he was getting ready to like lean forward and ask what's going on, but sees that's being taken care of. Even when Sora says, "Oh, it's just the drink. It's nothing," Bellaflecca is just like, "Uh-huh." Doesn't say it out loud, but it's definitely a very much, sure, yeah, you're okay. So, as Bellaflecca would fade to black for the night, he is definitely keeping one eye open on Sora. But otherwise, he is honestly just trying to relax for the night. He found Strix again. They have a moment to relax. He's hopefully going to be able to do that to the best of his ability.
All right. And as Bellaflecca beds down for the night, our vision goes across the town to where we see Minardil once again. So what do we see in his mind after the events of his prayer?
He, in his eyes, he was not answered in the verbal sense, but Minardil takes a hint, and possibly his companions are the key to their victory, or at least to Minardil's suspicion that the boy Sura is the key to his success. And he finishes his ritual and his prayers, and in a spiritual silence, he spends time with Ulmo in those quiet moments, endearingly, and possibly the god himself, in a small sense, spends time with him. No words are said, but simply in each other's companionship. Once this is concluded, he will whisper into the bowl of water his love and his desire to do better. And he recites again the couplets of the sea with the cadence of the tide. And he takes a sip of this cool stream water and then dumps the rest back into the river. He stows the bowl and returns to the town. He goes, we'll say, for another hour for a walk through the woods. And as he returns to the main thoroughfare, his owl, Olos, returns to him. The great eagle owl, monstrous bird, lands on his gauntleted fist there. And he whispers some beautiful and endearing things, and retrieving the note reply, he will read it thus: smile lovingly at the reply, and then return to the mine for that evening. And with an enormous bird on his shoulder, he will open the doorway to the mine as dwarvish singing finds his ears. He bends low over the threshold and launches his bird at the rafters. And if anyone to address him welcomes him back, he will say, "The hunt is on." And he taps the arm bracelet, the arm ring with his folded letter, and that will be the closing scene as the dwarves of the mine gaze, probably very endearingly into Minardale's emerald eyes at sunset.
All right. As that sun sets, we see the camera pull back, and the darkness in the lower dells has already almost approached the darkness of night, though the sky itself is still colored by that gorgeous sunset. But in one of those dark hollows, we see a figure that is doing its best to be unseen as it moves from tree to tree. Its cloak pulled tight around its shoulders, and the head, the hood up. It comes to that bridge, that dwarven bridge that the road, as they call it, crosses. He crosses that bridge, and just beyond, as he steps on the ground beyond the stone, a figure steps out of the shadows around the trees, dark cloaked. And the first figure throws its hood back, and we see the face of Oisir, the young man with the band that had rescued you the night before, the one who had a bad reaction to Minardale. And he steps forward to this dark figure, and he says, I have word to send to the lords." And the figure just nods. He says, a band, one Dunedain, some fellow from the far north, and a wounded elf have come to town. They were telling tales of facing the dead walking. The dark figure nods. He says, "Where are they now?" The dark figure says, its voice almost like, well, its voice very chilling in the way it speaks. It almost as if it has no emotion behind it at all. Voice shivers. He says, they're staying at the Yard's Longhouse. Well, two of them are. The Kumara is staying at the mine where the dwarves do their revelry. Dark figure nods, and he says, "Watch them. If they leave, send word. We will do the rest." Noiston sort of nods, and he says, there was talk of rewards." Dark figure says, "Yes, you'll be rewarded well." Almost as if no movement happens, but a small bag sort of emerges and falls to the ground at Oyster's feet, and he reaches in and picks it up and opens it and sees the glitter of silver and the sunset. His eyes glitter with the greed. He says, "Thank you, Lord, thank you." And the figure just turns and fades back into the forest as Oisir turns and happily begins heading back up to the town above. And with that, the curtains close on another episode of the Rogues of the Northern Frontier. Thank you for joining us tonight, and we will see you in a few weeks, where hopefully we will see what happens to this group. Good night.